Jai Sai Ram. Sri Sai Satcharitra Chapter 16 and 17 Part 2. Qualifications for Brahma Gnana or self-realization. All persons do not see or realize the Brahman in their lifetime. Certain qualifications are absolutely necessary. 1. Mumuksha or intense desire to get free. He who thinks that he is bound and that he should get free from bondage and works earnestly and resolutely so that to the end, and who does not care for any other things, is qualified for the spiritual life. Virakti, or a feeling of disgust with the things of this world and the next. Unless a man feels disgusted with the things, emoluments, and honors which his action would bring in this world and the next, he has no right to enter into the spiritual realm. Antarmukta, introversion. Our senses have been created by God with a tendency to move outward, and so man always looks outside himself and not inside. He who wants self-realization and immortal life must turn his gaze inwards and look into his inner self. Catharesis, from purging away of sins. Unless a man has turned away from wickedness and stopped from doing wrong and has entirely composed himself, and unless his mind is at rest, he cannot gain self-realization, even by means of knowledge. Right conduct. Unless a man leads a life of truth, penance, and insight, a life of celibacy, he cannot get God realization. Preferring Shreyas, the good, to Prayas, the pleasant. There are two things, the good and the pleasant. The former deals with spiritual affairs and the later with mundane affairs. Both these approach man for acceptance. The wise man prefers the good to the pleasant, but the unwise, through greed and attachment, chooses the pleasant. Control of the mind and the senses. The body is the chariot and the self is the master. Intellect is the charioteer and the mind is the reins. The senses are the horses and sense objects their paths. He who has no understanding and whose mind is unrestrained, his senses unmanageable like the vicious horses of a charioteer, does not reach his destination, but goes through the round of birth and deaths. But he who has understanding of and whose mind is restrained, his senses being under control, like the good horse of a charioteer, reaches the place, the state of self-realization, when he is not born again, where he is not born again. The man who has understanding as his charioteer and is able to rein his mind reaches the end of the journey, which is the supreme abode of all-pervading Vishnu. Purification of the mind. Unless a man discharges satisfactorily and disinterestedly the duties of his station in life, his mind will not be purified. And unless his mind is purified, he cannot get self-realization. It is only in the purified mind that viveka, discrimination between the unreal and the real, and vairagya crop up and lead on to the self-realization. Unless egoism is dropped, avarice is got rid of, and the mind made desireless, self-realization is not possible. The idea that I am the body is a great delusion, and attachment to the idea is the case of bondage. Leave off this idea and attachment, therefore, if you want to get to the self-realization, the necessity of a guru. The knowledge of the self is so subtle and mystic that no one could, by his own individual effort, ever hope to attain it. So, the help of another person, teacher, who has himself got self-realization is absolutely necessary. What others cannot give with great labor and pains can be easily gained with the help of such a teacher, for he has walked on the path himself and can easily take the disciple step by step on the ladder of spiritual progress. And lastly, the Lord's grace is the most essential thing. When the Lord is pleased with anybody, he gives him viveka and vairagya and takes him safe beyond the ocean of mundane existence. The self cannot be gained by the study of Vedas, not by intellect, nor by much learning. He whom the self chooses, by him it is gained. To him the self reveals its nature, says the Kathopanishad. Jai Sai Ram.